Hey everyone, I'm T,
And I'm Nessa.
and together we are the Casual Fangirls. Today we're getting together to chat about the latest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Eternals, which was released this past weekend. But before we get started, Nessa, warn them about what we're about to get into.
All right, guys. So you know how it goes. I'm giving you guys the spoiler warning for Eternals. We're pretty much sticking it to Eternals because you don't need too much deep information, but like blanket MCU spoiler warning because you know how we get. But if you haven't seen the movie yet, go watch the movie, come back and then watch us and listen to us. Unless, hey, you're like, screw it, let me hear what they think first, and then let me go see if I want to see the movie. That's cool too. But just know, we're going to be deep diving, and so we are going to release a lot of information that is in the movie. Okay? So, Dr. T, hit us with the recap.
All right, bear with us, because just like the movie was long, this recap is kind of long. All right, let's do it. So the Eternals are an alien life force sent by the celestial Arshem to Earth in 5000 BC to help humans advance. Throughout the film, we see flashbacks of the Eternals being present for many of the infamous wars throughout human history and how they've kept an eye on us as they fought off deviants, a separate alien life force who prey on humans. After they successfully kill off all the deviants, the Eternals decide to go their separate ways and live among humans until Arshem calls them home to Olympia. In present day, a worldwide earthquake and the reappearance of deviants feel like more than just a coincidence. Eternals, Circe and Icarus agree they need to get the band back together in order to figure out what's going on. They realize their leader, Ajax, is dead, and she designates Circe the new leader. Circe speaks with Arshem and learns that they were sent to Earth to ensure the human population grew enough to produce enough energy to birth a celestial that's been growing in the core of the Earth. Since many of the Eternals have grown attached to humans, some in relationships with families, they agree to stop the celestial's birth. But plot twist, Icarus ain't having it. We learn he killed Ajax to prevent her from stopping the celestial's birth, and he vows to make sure Arshem's mission is completed. The remaining Eternals figure out a way to put the celestial asleep, saving the planet with Circe at the helm. Icarus can't bring himself to hurt Circe, his soulmate, but also can't abide by the choice the group made, so he kills himself. The movie ends with the remaining Eternals on Earth disappearing as Arshem seeks to punish them for going against his orders. In the after-credit scenes, we meet Eros, Thanos' brother, who obviously has a thing for Athena, and claims to know where the missing Eternals are. And we see Circe's boyfriend, Jon Snow, ponder an old family heirloom as a mysterious voice warns him of his choice.
Ooh, quite the recap.
Yes, a lot happening.
That was great. Thank you for that. And so just to like let you guys know, the director of the movie was Chloe Zhao, who is also an Oscar winner for 2020 for Best Picture, which was Nomadland. And so we're going to run down our cast. And just like how the recap was long, the cast is long too. So we have Angelina Jolie as Athena, who can conjure weapons and is an expert fighter. Richard Madden, aka Rob Stark, is Icarus, who has super strength, laser eye beams, and he flies. Pretty much Superman.
Yeah.
Right? Selma Hayek as Ajax. She has healing abilities, as well as she is the prime Eternal. So she's the leader of the group, and she communicates with Arishem in the beginning. We have Kumail Nanjiani, I hope I said that right, as Kingo, who shoots fire energy balls, or I guess cosmic energy, out of his hands. We have Barry Keoghan, again, I hope I said that right, who is Druig, and his power is mind control. We have Leah McHugh, who is Sprite. She has invisibility and can also project illusions. Lauren Ridloff as Makari, who has super speed and super fast processing. Everything is super fast about her. And we have Brian Tyree Henry as Fastos, who's basically a technology inventor and has super intelligence. And those are our main Eternals.
We're missing two, Nessa, real quick. Do Circe and Gilgamesh.
And then, oh yes, we have Circe, who is Gemma Chan, who is able to manipulate the elements. And then we have Gilgamesh, who is played by Don Lee, and he has gold gloves of super strength. So those are our main Eternals. Then we have Kit Harington, who plays Dane Whitman, aka Black Knight. We'll talk more about that later. And then we have Harry Styles, who plays Eros, aka Star Fox. Again, we'll talk more about that later. The runtime for this movie was a whopping 2 hours and 37 minutes.
It was long.
Yes, and it received mixed reviews, but a lot of poor critic reviews. It got 48% on Rotten Tomatoes as of so far, anyways. A lot of people said it was too long. It needed more wit. It was slow in the middle of the film. People felt like Gemma Chan's portrayal of Cersei was wooden. So I gotta ask you, Tamara, after coming out of theaters, we both only seen it once. After coming out of theaters, how do you feel about this movie?
How do I feel about it, or do I like it?
I guess both.
Do I like the movie? Sure. I just love being in the MCU as a patron, as a spectator of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So is it nice to be back into that world? Absolutely, all the time. I want all the things that the MCU gives. So I liked being back in the world. How did I feel about the movie? I think I too would give it a mixed review. I have things that I really enjoyed, and I have things that, like, there's nothing about the movie I hated. It's just I think there are areas where it could have made the movie better. But before I jump into those things, what did you think about the movie?
Overall, I liked it. When I left the theater, I didn't feel strongly one way or the other. So I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It's not something that I would call up everybody and be like, oh man, you got to go see this. Like, it wasn't that kind of a feeling. And it didn't take me where I thought the MCU was going to take us.
Okay, that's fair.
So I too do have kind of mixed feelings about it, but overall I liked it. I didn't think it was a horrible movie. I didn't think it was the worst movie I've ever seen. I didn't feel like, oh, I just wasted my time, but it definitely was lacking in certain areas.
So yeah, so I have a couple of comments. So let's start with the good things, right? So some of my highlights from the movie, probably the main highlight for the movie for me was just the overall representation that the movie writers and producers and directors like I think did a really good job at portraying. And when you hear the word representation, I think nowadays people automatically assume race. And sure, like, yes, the Eternals is a very kind of racially or culturally eclectic bunch. You see Black people, you see East Asian people, you see Southeast Asian people, white people, the whole 9 yards. But also in gender, like Ajak traditionally in the comic books is a male, and they made Ajak in this movie a female. They had differently abled, like with
right. So
Makari, Makari being hearing impaired.
And the actress herself is hearing impaired too.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yep. So that kind of makes me like that a little bit more now.
The actress herself is hearing impaired. So it's not just like, oh, they got someone who is hearing abled and then, like, you know, made them play that role. They actually hired somebody.
Oh, that's so great. That makes me like it so much better. So that was great. I just love seeing that. I loved how everyone, I mean, they're Eternal, so you would, I guess, would assume that they speak all languages. But like a piece of me was like, I wonder if they brought sign language based on how the movie is set up, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. Like, I wonder if they're suggesting that like Makari brought sign language to the world, you know, like, which I think is super, super cool. There was also representation in sexuality. We see our first gay kiss on screen in the MCU, which was fantastic. I loved everying about that.
Yeah.
So
and
just
first gay couple,
first gay
and family.
I loved that. And I love that, like, no one blinked an eye. Like, it was just like super, super great. So representation is the highlight of the movie for me. And then the second thing that I think was so cool to me personally was the role of mythology in the MCU. And not only, you know, we have characters, Athena, Icarus, these are names that are Cersei, that to me, someone who is a lover of Greek mythology, I'm just like, okay, obviously you got those names from Greek mythology. But in the movie, they position it so that the Eternals are the actual inspiration for the mythology, when in reality, in our world, it's the other way around, where the mythology influenced the creation of the characters, the Eternals. So I love that, like, they were able to, and this is by far like my favorite thing that fantasy stories do, when they connect it like really succinctly with like historical events that actually happen in real time. I think we had this brief conversation with X-Men, I think it was First Class, when they like mixed up and made it so that some of the X-Men or mutants were responsible for the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 70s. I thought that was fantastic. But anyways, yeah. And I'm kind of hoping, and just a quick tangent, I'm hoping with the Fantastic Beasts movies, that with Grindelwald and Dumbledore's big battle happening in 1945, that's the same year that World War II ended, and I'm just like, that can't be a coincidence. But anyways, right. So I get really excited about that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too. Like even how Sprite was like creating the illusions to tell them like these stories. And they was like, oh, didn't Icarus fly too close to the sun? They was like, yeah, Sprite made that up. And I was like, that's cute. That's funny. Or when Angelina Jolie, when she was talking to Fastos' son, and he was like, oh, are you like Athena from like Greece? And she was like, drop the A. Yeah, and I was like, it's just Athena. Yeah. And I was like, okay. I like those moments. I like those moments.
The one other thing I would add there is that the other piece, and this is not really mythology, but I guess maybe mythology to us to a certain extent, we actually see the MCU reference DCEU characters. Did you catch that?
I did.
So Fastos' kid calls Icarus Superman. Yeah. Like, you fly, you have a cape and like your lasers, and Icarus is like, I don't have a cape. And then we see, I forget who it was, but someone else like mentioned how how I'm forgetting all of their names. I want to say Kumal, but I don't want to call him Kumal. What's his character's name? Kingo's lackey, his valet. He's like, oh, so you're his Alfred. And you're like, yes. Right?
That's exactly what I thought when I saw them together. I was like, oh, I was like, you got an Alfred? Cool.
So I thought all of that was like super great and definitely highlights of the movie for me. What about you?
Yeah, the highlights for me were, I did like the fight scenes. I thought the fight scenes were good. I thought they came at good points in the movie where I was just kind of like, all right, I'm fading a little bit, and then it was boom, a deviant would pop out, and I was like, okay, now I'm back in, like I'm here to see it. And especially like that final fight on the beach when Fastos starts laying it on Icarus, I was like, I sometimes I really hate going to theaters because like I feel like I'm the only one. Like I propped up in my seat and I was like, yes, all right. And then, even when Makari was like coming down on,
she got hands.
She got hands.
She got hands and feet, apparently.
Yeah, all of it. And I was just like, is nobody else excited about this? It's just me. Yeah. All right, cool. But even with their fighting, like we see like this new, almost like cosmic tech that we've never really seen before. So that was a plus for me too, because everything looks different. Even Shang-Chi, when we see the 10 rings, it looks different, but almost a little similar to that. But like when Thena pulls out like her spear and her shield, it's got all these like geometric shapes. And, you know, when Fastos is doing his thing, it all looks very cool. Like it could have looked cheesy. It easily could have looked cheesy, but I thought it actually really looked cool. Kingo was a highlight for me, boy.
Was he?
He was so funny. I loved him. Like I instantly fell in love with him as a character. Like as soon as they came down in the Bollywood scene, I was like, oh yes. I was like, yes. Like if you were an Eternal, why would you not do this? Like why would you not be famous through all these generations, generating all this money? My boy's got a private jet, like, and is making money legitimately.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I love that. I of course love Makari. To me, she was like spunky, sassy, but like she was just fun to watch. And there was just, with everything she did, there was just so much emotion on her face. And I don't know how much that is due to the fact that she is hearing impaired and everything, but like, I love the way the emotions read on her face. And then when she would get together with Druig, I was like, oh, is this is this electricity here? What is this? What is this?
I mean, I like that they called it out when Icarus was like, do we have to sit through this? Like, when did this happen?
Is this new? I love that. Just like you said, how they connect things throughout history. Star Fox scene. The Star Fox scene was a, even though that could have made me more confused, but having Pip come out first and like introduce him as Thanos' brother, my ears perked up, and I was like,
ooh. Meerkat, what is about to happen here?
Right, exactly. So that got me good. The plot twist I thought was good. Not that I didn't see it coming, but I liked it. And it ran deeper than I thought. And I was like,
when the plot twist happened, and you're speaking specifically about Icarus, right?
Yeah. Finding out Icarus is bad boy.
Well, is like, it reminded me a lot of Captain Marvel when we saw Jude Law do something like he wound up being the actual villain. That was like the only other time I think in the MCU so far, I guess, besides Mysterio in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Where we've seen like a character that we've been building up to be one of the good guys and one of the main characters is like actually the villain. I always enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool in this movie as well. I kind of wish they built up Icarus's allegiance to Arshem more before the reveal.
Yeah.
Because a piece of me was like, why is he the only one that's like so dedicated to Arshem, however you want to pronounce his name.
Right.
When the Prime Eternal wasn't even that freaking attached.
Right.
You know? So there's a little piece of that was like, do I believe that like he would, I guess maybe if they built up like, maybe he resented not being the Prime Eternal for like the entire time and like he saw this as his chance, like maybe that would have given it more oomph to me, but I don't mind it. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, he was stuck on the mission. He was like, this is what we're here to do, and this is how it's going to go. And I was just like, you outnumbered, though. But
they were all afraid of him. They were all just like, we can't all beat him together. And I was like, why y'all say that? I think y'all could all beat him. What, like, why are you not saying, like, what is the problem here? I also love when Icarus says something about, like, you've never fought me before, like you've never fought me, and Thena was just like, oh, but I've always wanted to. Let's do this. And I was like,
ooh, I like that. Okay, so there were a couple of plot twists, right? So we did have that where Icarus turns out it was him who killed Ajax in the story and sets them up to like reunite together to basically distract them from the emergence that's going to happen with the Celestial from the middle of the earth, right? But then there's also kind of like a plot twist of where we find out that the Eternals are actually basically like robots in a sense. Basically almost like versions of Vision in a way. Where it's like they have this intelligence, but they were created by the Celestials. Not quite human, but they're not, I don't know what to even like really call them, but I guess you could call them robots.
Would we call them Vision is a synthezoid, right? Or what's the word for
like
it?
That, yeah.
Something like that. I guess they would be considered something. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I would figure that.
I don't see why not. Yeah, if the Mind Stone was created by Celestials or around the same time as Celestials, then yeah, I would say that Eternals are probably very similar. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
To me, that's the way I kind of pictured it. When I thought going into the movie that they were maybe going to either be aliens or be maybe humans that were chosen and then like elevated or something like that or whatever. So, but I mean, it's like it was revealed and I was just kind of like, okay. Like it didn't, I don't know.
All right. It almost felt like it needed to be a plot line of a separate movie.
Right.
Like in order to do it like justice. The other thing I will say too is that when I did learn that they were created, that they weren't born, they were created, it made me think like, wow, this Prime Celestial Arshem created his own little army of super beings to help him birth other Celestials, and he chose the human form. Like that's the thing that like stuck out to me, that like there are many different forms of life around the galaxy and all the multi-universes and everything, but he chose the human form. And there's something very interesting about that that's like underlying, but I think like subconsciously like trying to reinforce to us that like even in all these multi-universes, there's something about the human form and the human being that's superior. And that's why all other worlds always turn to Earth to try to like do something here.
That is interesting. Because I'm trying to, and this is why I hate watching movies just once, but I'm trying to run my memory down through when they had all the bodies lined up.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if any of them were any other type of being.
I was looking and did not see any, but there could be something that I missed like in the background somewhere. But all in that main row, I know this thing you're talking about, in that main row where they were like going through it, all I saw was human-esque like beings.
Right.
That's all I saw.
So that would be interesting if that was the form that they chose of all forms. What were your nitpicks? We did
okay.
Stuff.
So
get in that ass. What did you not enjoy so much?
My biggest nitpick is the length of the movie, and it manifests in different ways. So I thought some scenes were too long or unnecessary. And the one of the scenes I'll call out for that is the whole montage they did to like show Icarus falling in love with Cersei. Like we got it with the first with the first scene. Like you show him like voyeur-esque watching her like be with the humans to like teach them things and brushing her hair and like all that stuff. We didn't need like 5 of them. We only needed 1. 2, in that same montage, it ends with like him confessing his love, whatever. And then they have sex, which, quick aside, first time we've seen sex in a Marvel movie, right? And when they showed it, I was like, oh, was not expecting them to have to go. They didn't need to go there. There was no point in having the sex scene at all, first of all, because they've already built it up. But 2, when they actually showed it, I was like, it was so interesting to me that they chose to do that when I felt wholeheartedly it was not necessary. And then we got, and I'm now like branching off into my own conspiracy theory here, right? Get ready for it. Then we get to the scene where Festos kisses his husband. And in that moment, I was like, oh, that's why they put the sex scene in. Because if parents want to have a heart attack about 2 men kissing on screen, they could be like, oh, you're mad about that, but not the sex scene? Don't do that. Like, don't even try it.
That's an interesting conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy theory, but I feel like the sex scene was insurance against the gay kiss scene.
That's interesting. I'm
gonna just let that marinate for a second. But
that is interesting. But I will say, I mean, with all of those extra scenes and stuff like that, I think their purpose, more than really setting up like Icarus and Cersei, I think their purpose was to show you how deeply Cersei really loved these people and how deep rooted she was to their culture and stuff like that. So I think that's why they tried to extend it too. And because when they kissed, first I was like, this kiss is really long for like an MCU movie. And then the sex scene came and I was like, okay, so are they just gonna hold each other? I saw a thrust.
She was reacting to thrusts. Her reaction was on some like Duke and freaking, what was her name? Daphne type like I was just like, I'm watching Bridgerton right now.
They were trying to keep it super subtle, but I was like, nah, man, I seen it. And I know
those reactions. I know what's happening.
My movie theater, there was a kid who was next to me who was like maybe 10 to 13 years old. And I know there was other kids in the theater, and then the theater got quiet as that scene was happening. And I was just like, oh my God.
Right? Like when I
felt like it was unnecessary.
I felt like it was unnecessary. When that scene came up, I was like, what was the R rating for this movie? And I looked and it's PG-13, which Endgame was PG-13 as well. But in other countries, they elevated this movie's rating to be like mature audiences over 18. Ooh, okay. So I think, again, and I think my conspiracy theory is right, that this was insurance for the gay kiss scene. And I think the gay kiss scene was fantastic and necessary to show like a level of like what Fastos is having to deal with, like the choice he has to make.
Right.
But I don't think that the insurance scene, insurance scene. I'm calling it the insurance scene. I don't think that the sex scene was necessary, and I think it was insurance for the other scene. But in any event, so as a manifestation of one of the things that like made the movie too long, which is one of my nitpicks, is like, you know, some scenes were too long or unnecessary. And then the other nitpick I had was that there were just so many characters, so many new characters. I did not remember all of the Eternals' names by the time I left the movie theater. And I think that was an indication of there just being so much going on. Like, I was calling people by the other characters I know them as. Like, I didn't remember Fastos. I remember the dude from Atlanta, which is awful, but like, that's how I characterized in my head, right? I honestly think, and I'd be interested in your perception of this, I think Eternals could have made a good TV show, a Disney Plus series, like a 6 1-hour series like Loki. I thought that would be interesting because you can get more into the characters. You can deal with them finding out that they're synthezoids. You can deal with, Icarus, like the plot twist of Icarus being against them. You can have a whole hour of just them trying to figure that out. I just, in hindsight, think that it would have done the characters a lot more service to have them in a series, especially because, like, we're assuming Icarus is dead at this point, right? He flew into the sun. Surprise, surprise.
And there's a suicide.
Right. He's suicide. Like, yeah, he kills
and
himself.
It wasn't a sacrifice like Tony sacrificed himself, right? This was like, oh, I messed up. I need to go die.
I'm ashamed. I can't deal with like not completing, like going against my mission, but I'm also not going to kill the love of my life. So then I must die and let me fly into the sun, since that's like the mythology behind me. And I was just like, I want more Rob Stark though. Like, that actually made me upset. Like Salma Hayek. I want more Salma Hayek.
Right. So yeah, I agree too. I think there were too many characters and y'all expected us to care about each and every one of them. And it just was not possible. Like, for me, especially like Thena, Sprite, and Gilgamesh, they didn't even really have much to do, honestly. So I didn't really care too much when it came down to them. I would have rather seen a love story between Druig and Makari, to be honest with you. Like, that was interesting to me.
Yes, it was.
I thought Druig's philosophy was an interest. Like, I'm surprised they didn't play on that a little bit more. Like, we can change these things. We can do that. You know, that whole, even like Loki had that kind of thing, right? If I take away your free will, like, you'll be living in happiness, that kind of thing. So I'm surprised that they didn't play on that a little bit more. And then it was interesting because I felt like the trailers and stuff and the marketing made it seem like Kit Harington was a bigger part of the movie than he actually really was.
I was shocked. That is probably the biggest plot twist of the movie.
And so, mind you, like, even when they did all the announcements of the Eternals and everything like that, like, I didn't really pay too much attention to it or dig too deep into it. So I just naturally thought in my mind that Kit was one of the Eternals.
Same.
And when he wasn't, I was like, wait, what? Okay, fine. They're going to have a plot twist that really early on, it turns out he has powers because he's asking her like, oh, are you like Doctor Strange? And I thought there was going to be, you know, an earlier revelation of like, hey, this is who I am and this is what I've done. And like, if you took him out of the movie, it would have never even changed the movie.
It wouldn't have changed the movie. I love that they did that though. I approve of that, like, bait and switch, because even in some of the trailers, and I remember watching the scene where the first deviant attacks them in London, there was a trailer where it looks like Kit Harington turned the bus into rose petals, but it was really Cersei that did that. But in the trailer, I was like, oh, Jon Snow did that. Like, Kit Harington did that, not Cersei. So I thought that was brilliant. And then, like, so we end the movie, or, you know, we see them walking at the end, and he was just like, you know, she's like, oh, I'm an Eternal. I can't hide that anymore. I can't fake being human. I'm like, all right, they're going to have a cute little happy ending. He's just a regular human boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes like, my past. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? Yes. You are going to do something with this. So that was just like, I really enjoyed that Marvel set that up. Like, they really did a bait and switch, especially in all the freaking like all the, like, the red carpet and all the videos and like pictures coming up is always Kit Harington and Robb Stark. It's always Jon Snow and Robb Stark like together and all these things. And you're just like, oh, they're like superheroes fighting together. This is dope. That is not what happened at all.
Yeah, they were definitely playing on like the Thrones fans and stuff, like, ooh, we're gonna get to see them together again, kind of thing. And it's like they had one scene together that was just like, nice to meet you, kind of thing, which I was totally fine with. Like, I didn't need them to do this whole interaction and whatever,
Right.
and extend that or whatever. But I was just really surprised. I was like, oh, he's really not part of the movie, like in the way I thought. But it was interesting. But yeah, it was too many characters. It was too much going on. I kind of agree with you. I think as a Disney Plus series, it would have been easier to flesh them out. I know with the Infinity Saga, they kind of wanted to leave that air of, is MCU over? But it still almost feels like maybe if you had introduced a couple of the characters in earlier movies in some sort of way, and then brought it together, there would have been less work for the movie to do in terms of like, these are who these people are, this is what they believe, these are their powers, this is what they do. Like it creates a whole lot going on. But yeah, I had the same nitpicks as you. It was too long, too many characters. So I don't, it made the movie a little tough. And then the other thing for me too was, so their whole thing is like, oh, we come down to Earth and we're really not supposed to interfere, right? And I guess more specifically, they're not supposed to interfere with conflicts. So it's like, we can, plant the seeds of like growth and stuff like that. We can give you some technology and do these things. But like, if y'all start fighting each other, we're supposed to just step back and like.
But there's a reason for that, though. Do you remember?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
The reason that they were instructed to not interfere is because when humans fight and we go to war, it breeds technological advances that eventually lead to us having a larger and more sustainable population, which is the ultimate goal.
Right.
To have more humans on Earth, because there's more energy on Earth that theoretically would be enough to birth a celestial.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, when they explained it in that way in the movie, I was like, okay, that really actually makes a lot of sense. Because after each war, you've got what? More weapons, people trying to go to the moon, advancements in healthcare and surgeries and all that kind of stuff. So it actually does really make a lot of sense. But I forgot who said it in the movie, but somebody was like, it might have been Druid, and they were like, what does that do to you though after centuries of sitting back and watching these humans kind of like fight and destroy themselves, and you're constantly seeing this happen? And I was like, dang, that's a good point. That makes sense. So, and then now they're like, oh, they fought back and snapped themselves back, so they're worth saving. It's like, okay. All right, but we've only got 7 days to do it, so sure.
I mean, so first of all, why did Ajax wait until they only had a week left to make the decision that she wasn't gonna go through with Arsham's orders? Whatever. But when they mentioned that, like when Ajax reminded us of the snap, and I connected that to like Arsham's grand design, like was he not like? And now I'm getting into like implications of the MCU and like extending the MCU and everything, right?
Right.
Who is more in charge, Kane or a celestial like Arsham? And here's my questioning for that. If Kane is controlling timelines and basically made it so that the Avengers and Infinity Saga was able to bring half the population back that were snapped away, is Arsham aware of that, and that's why he didn't interfere with Thanos? Because Thanos snapping away half of the population directly conflicts with Arsham's and the Eternals' grand plan.
Right.
So you would think that in a case like that, Arsham would interfere and be like, nah, like, especially if Thanos is supposed to be a baby celestial, right? Like, as a Titan, he's connected to the Eternals and the Celestials in some way that, because I'm more of a casual fan, I just don't know. But when we see his brother pop up, he has one of the things that Arsham gave to Ajax.
Right. He
So
does.
is he an Eternal? Like if he's like some variation of an Eternal,
What
how
does
is he
that make
also Thanos' brother?
Thanos? Right.
Right. And so if that's the case, then Arsham should be aware of Thanos and his grand plans. Why didn't he stop him from snapping away half the universe? And if he didn't stop him, it's because he knew that the half would come back. And if that's the case, is he talking to Kane or are they in cahoots? Like I have a lot of things happening in my brain right now in order to make these things make sense.
So with Arishem, I think it would probably be the same thing as like watching the conquistadors come through, right?
Okay.
And raid like Central America and stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is a conflict. Let them figure it out. And boom, they figured out the snap, right? And that kind of thing.
Half the population feels like a wild number, though.
It is. But I think you can see that clearly birthing a celestial takes a long time.
True.
So for him, I don't think like
That's
knocking
true.
off a few years really even means anything to him. Like that's a drop in the bucket. Like he's like, whenever it's time, it's time. I don't care. Like there's
That's
no
fair.
rush, you know, that kind of thing. But yes, it does leave questions of what is Thanos exactly? Is he and I have some information on that a little bit
Can't
later.
wait.
But but what is he? Is he an Eternal? Is he, they call him the Mad Titan? Like it's what are you? And then like the Celestials, do y'all exist outside of the TVA? Are there different Celestials in each universe of the multiverse? How does that work? How does that work? You know, because we've seen Celestials before. We know that Ego is a Celestial.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the head that they called Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy. That was the chopped off head of a Celestial. So, you know, we get the explanation also when they were explaining what the stone, the Infinity Stones are. So I'm very curious if they're going to piece those pieces together.
Hope so, because I got questions
to bring it all in. But I do remember we did talk about they are expanding the world so much. How are they going to try and ground this movie? And it seemed like they worked really hard to try and ground the movie with us, because even though they give us now Celestials and all this other stuff going on, they wanted to make sure that it was like, oh, but the Eternals love people. And like, this is what they do. And they built families and that kind of thing. And even with Sprite being like, I want to grow up. Like, I want to have these experiences. You guys get to go out in the world and have these experiences because y'all are full blown adult looking anyways, whatever. And like, she looks like a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old or something like that. So she has to constantly put these illusions on herself to make her look older to even pass through. But as soon as someone touches her, it's gone. So I thought they did a decent job of trying to ground it for us and make us care about these people. It was just too many people to care about.
It was too many people to care about. But I mean, it was too many people to care about. But by the end of the movie, there was like just enough people to care about. Like, because now it's like, where's Cersei, Kingo, and Phastos, right?
Yeah.
So now we're worried about three of them. So like, where are they? And like, I'm actually worried. Like, where are they? Phastos needs to get home to his son. Like, I don't like that. Right. So,
because at the end of the movie, Arishem pops back up and is like, we need a team meeting.
Basically.
And calls them up, come to the front of the class, please.
Right.
And is like, all right, so now I'm going to go through y'all memories and see if like, if humans are even worth keeping on this planet or whatever. So we don't know exactly where he takes them, because he kind of just peers through the clouds a little bit. And now the remaining Eternals are now on the Domo ship trying to find them out, seek them out in the universe wherever they are.
Which is interesting, because why didn't he go for them also?
That's a good question. That is a good question, because clearly people ain't hard to find.
Everybody knows where everybody is, apparently. So like,
is it just because they're the ones who chose to stay behind? Or they're the ones, they made the deepest connections to humanity. Maybe that's what it is. So they would have more memories with interactions with people than
They would
Tina
have
would.
more than Thena.
Yeah, than Makari. Makari was sitting in the ship, like reading
That's true. That's
and
true.
stealing shit around the world.
But not Druid. Druid was controlling their minds. Like if anyone has like a super deep connection, I would assume him.
He was, but he was basically running a cult at the end of the day, right? Because it was
I'm not mad at it.
It was his little village.
I'm not mad
and
at
like
it.
those people didn't have their own personalities. They just
That's
kind of
true.
did what he wanted them to do.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, the other three had genuine connections with people.
They
so
tried to assimilate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah. So we might as well get into like our post-credit scenes. Which if you guys are casual fans like us, y'all were probably confused at both scenes. Because I know my theater was, T, I don't know how yours was. Did anybody react in your theater? Was it that kind of experience?
No one reacted to the first credit scene. Yeah. People reacted with the voice at the end.
Okay.
And I heard some people throwing some names out.
Right.
And then some people threw the name out that I thought it was.
Right.
And as we're about to know, it's not that person. So go ahead, let them know. Let them know what we dug up.
Yeah, because we were really confused. So in that first mid-credit scene that we get, like we say, they're on the Domo ship. They're trying to find the lost three Eternals, and pops in this creature out of nowhere called Pip the Troll. And then we also get introduced to Eros, who we find out is Thanos' brothers. Now, in the comics, he is Thanos' brother from Saturn's moon, Titan, right? That's where they're from. Thanos was born with a deviant gene, which is what made him purple and monstrous, while Eros was born beautiful. He can fly, he has super strength, and can manipulate the emotions of others. He receives the name Star Fox after moving to Earth and becoming an Avenger. So that's his background story in the comics, or lightly his background story in the comics. If y'all super fans are out there, don't jump on me. Now, Pip the Troll in the comics, he was originally the sidekick of Adam Warlock, who will appear in the MCU in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He was an enemy of the Universal Church of Truth, an organization that's led by a version of Warlock from the future. He accompanies present-day Warlock on many adventures. In the MCU, they join our remaining Eternals to find Cersei, Phastos, and Kingo. With their history in the comics, who knows where else they might pop up in the franchises, and what role they're kind of gonna play, right? So are we gonna learn more about Thanos and Titan as a whole? Are we going to see them in Guardians of the Galaxy?
That's my guess.
Yeah, like where are they going to potentially pop up? We don't really know. Mm-hmm. But I did think it was interesting that in the comics, there is a future version of Warlock that does appear. So, which kind of fits in with our whole multiverse, different versions, variants of people. Are we going to get that? I don't know. So many options.
Can I say really quickly that when Pip the Troll popped up, I didn't even hear what he said. The only thing I caught was Eros being Thanos' brother.
Yeah.
I was so focused on trying to place Pip the Troll's voice. Because is that what I knew I was like, who is this? I know it was driving me insane that I was just like, no, I want to know who the voice is. I don't care what he's saying. I want to know the voice. Thank you for clarifying, because I knew the voice.
Yeah, Patton Oswalt voices him. Yeah, because it's a super familiar voice, but I couldn't place it either. I was like, I need to know who this is.
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
All right. So in our end credit scene, we see Dane pop back up, Kit Harington, Jon Snow, as we know and love him, pops back up. He has this mysterious box that he opens up and has a weapon in it. It's a sword. And so in this scene, the sword kind of seems to react to him a little bit as he reaches in to touch it. And my first thought was like, is this like a symbiote thing? Like, is this a venom thing? Like, it flew through my mind. maybe not. We know that we're getting a Morbius movie, which has to deal with vampires, and that is connected to Venom and connected to Spider-Man. I don't know. But the sword is called the Ebony Blade. And it's actually mentioned by Sprite earlier on when Thena picks up a sword and she's like, is that the Ebony Blade or Excalibur? And she's like, oh, it's Excalibur. And she's like, oh, Arthur used to have a crush on you, kind of thing. So it's mentioned earlier in the movie. But in the comics, the Ebony Blade belonged to Dane's uncle, Nathan Garrett, aka the Black Knight. The sword is passed down to Dane, who takes on the mantle. And why is this important? It was created by Merlin and has the power to protect its wielder from death, deflect magic, and cut through any object. It's considered one of the most powerful weapons on Earth. However, the blade does corrupt the soul of the wielder, feeding off the darkness in the person and extends life at grave cost.
That sounds very familiar.
It's the counterpart to Excalibur. So where Excalibur, you have to have a pure heart to wield it. This one, it's like you have to have an impure heart, or it's going to corrupt your heart so much that the darkness in you is going to come out.
That sounds a lot like The Ring.
It does. It does, doesn't it?
When I was reading over your notes, I was just like, that's The Ring and Smeagol. What are we talking about here?
Ooh.
Right?
Yes, I like that. So in the comics, Dane struggles with this, but he's determined to use the weapon for good and even uses it to help the Avengers defeat King the Conqueror. Dane even teams up with Blade in the comics.
Okay, so maybe The Ring and not Smeagol, but the head hobbit. What's his name?
Frodo?
Okay.
Yeah. So I found that obviously very interesting because that's where the MCU is headed, right? We have King the Conqueror in here. We're getting a Blade movie coming out. And I was just like, ooh, Kit, where are we going to see you next? You know? So to me, that's what made it worth the way they played Dane's character out.
Yeah.
But you had to go and dig deep to find this stuff. Like if you are a casual watcher, like you just wouldn't know. At the end of the movie, somebody screamed out, does anybody know who that voice is? Like, and I turned around and I was like, no, can you tell us? Like, because we're so confused.
So tell the people.
In an interview, Kumail Nanjiani, who plays Kingo, reveals that the mysterious voice that we hear is Mahershala Ali as Blade.
Ooh, I just got chills.
So, because there were a lot of theories. Some people thought it was the Watcher. Some people thought it was Fury.
I thought it was Fury.
It did sound very much like Fury.
Like Fury.
I will tell you this though. I was like, that's a black guy.
I knew it was a black guy. And like, who's all the black men we've seen so far that we know are still in the movie, in the MCU? The main one is Fury. And to pop up in an end credit scene like that, he's known to do that. So like,
yeah.
I was just like, that has to be Fury. Like I just knew it was Fury. Like, oh, you a superhero too? I'm about to tell you about it. Let's go. Like, I thought that was about to happen. But I knew it was black. I knew it was a black person.
Yeah. So in the box, there's also the inscription that death is my reward. So it's rumored to be because the blade does extend your life at such a grave cost. Dying is actually like sweet mercy of a relief. And so I'm very interesting to see, Dane take up this mantle of the Black Knight, and with Blade asking like, are you ready to do this? Like, does that mean they're partnering up together? Are they, you know what I'm saying? Like, and let me say this. Dane better be the sidekick, because I ain't doing it. Okay? Dane better be the sidekick. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't even consider that. You are so right. I'm actually a little conflicted.
Nope. If they partner up, I need him to be the sidekick, because I need them
for the culture. I need him to be the sidekick.
Yes, because you can't go from Wesley Snipes' Blade and then turn Blade into like a sidekick or almost, I don't want to say a background character, but like I can't have Jon Snow outshining my mans.
So two things. One, we know that there's a Blade movie coming out. Are we sure there's a Black Knight movie coming out?
I don't think so. I don't think they would do it.
The Black Knight character has been on the docket for a while. I remember it being like listed out somewhere as something upcoming. The other thing I would say is that for the culture, the Blade movie, or like Blade better be like the main character and Black Knight be the thing. However, the fan girl in me like kind of wants Jon Snow to have his own movie as well. Not more than like getting Blade be actually like having Blade be actually Blade, but I'll also feel a little like, oh, John, you tried.
Yeah. And I would say too, you know what? I wouldn't mind Dark Knight having his own movie.
Black
Knight having his own movie, only just because that would absolutely mean that Blade is solo in his movie. And I'd much rather have Blade be just solo in his movie than having to really share too much screen time. Yeah. So I would rock with that 100% for sure.
I'm with it. I'm excited for it now. Definitely excited for what they got coming. I thought they did a great job setting us up for wanting a little bit more. We have Morbius coming out. That was in the trailer when I saw the movie, and that looked good. So I'm definitely watching
I went and watched it. After you mentioned it, I watched it. And that's why I was like, oh, it's from the same production company that did Venom and Far From Home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is the bridge right here. Mm-hmm. Like, this makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I am excited to go run into the theater to go see it.
Oh, I'm not saying all that neither. I just, in general, like, I'm excited that the MCU is still MCUing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how all these things are going to tie in, because when I left the theater, I was just like, it didn't take me where I thought the MCU was going to take. Like, it didn't expand in the way I thought it was going to. Like, we didn't learn more about Kang. We didn't learn more about the multiverse. We didn't, and you spent all these like TV shows kind of setting up to that. And
it added more things. It didn't flesh anything out. It just added more astronomical players and consequences and rules. And it just added more to the world building. And it's like, at some point, all of this is going to have to start merging together. But I would imagine if we were the casual fangirls we are now, when the Infinity Saga first started, somewhere around Thor Dark World, like somewhere in the middle of phase 2, we would have been feeling the same way. Like, all right, you were giving us a lot of information. How is this all going to come together?
Possibly. But also, I will say too, though, like, I feel like in places where Guardians of the Galaxy succeeded, Eternals failed. Because if you think, Guardians of the Galaxy gave us also a lot of new characters, a lot of new worlds, all
of that,
yeah. But like, it was way more enjoyable. There was more levity to it. I think the story was a little bit more streamlined and structured. And by the end of the movie, you even cared about Groot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You cared. And like, this movie, it was like, all right, you gave us all these people, you gave us, some portions of like the galaxy out there and some history, but at the end, did I really end up caring about all these people? No. Like,
no, I don't care about, and that's awful because I shouldn't say that, but like,
at this point, I don't.
It can be a self-contained movie. Like, I don't think that it has the biggest implication, and I've mentioned this to you like 5 times already off air. The biggest implication to me is like, how are people going to react to a huge celestial head and hand in the middle of the Indian Ocean? I want to see that. Like, show me how people are reacting to that. That is like the biggest implication so far to me of the MCU.
Yeah, that should be interesting. But I like you said, I'm curious to see how they're going to circle this back around. I'm curious to see if further down the line, we're going to look back at this movie and be like, okay, I see what y'all was doing there. I doubt it, but it's possible. It's happened before in other MCU movies. But again, I doubt it. Mm-hmm. So I got to ask. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say one last thing before we wrap up. Festos is how you say it.
Abestos?
No, it's because Festos is a play on Hephaestus, the Greek god or whatever.
Yeah.
When Festos was saying how they needed a way to connect all of them together, they needed bracelets. I was like, 10 rings, where you at?
Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. Yes.
I just knew the 10 rings were gonna pop up, and they didn't, and it made me so upset.
Because when that happened, I was like, oh shoot, Tamara was right. She was right. And I thought they were gonna, like, I don't know, somehow conjure the rings or find them or whatever.
Yeah, like go find Shang-Chi and he's like, yo, you just need the rings. You gonna bring it back? We'll bring it back. All right, good. And just give it to them. Like that would have been fine.
Because I remember you on the pod calling them bracelets. And I was just like, this girl really going off. So when he was calling them bracelets, I was like, oh shoot, she might have been right. But he made his own, and I was just like, okay. I guess.
So yeah, sorry, I just wanted to bring that up.
No, you're good. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to mention that and I totally forgot about it. But that was great. That was good. So I gotta ask, we gotta give our rankings, man. Is this movie bottom, mid, or top tier for you in the MCU?
So to let the viewers and listeners to know, when we talking tiers, what we're doing is we're taking all of the movies or whatever it is that we're ranking, dividing them up by 3, and then saying like, would this movie or show, whatever we're talking about, fall in the bottom third, middle third, or top third. So right now we're at 26 MCU movies altogether, and so our tiers would be 8 or 9 movies in each tier right now. To answer your question, Eternals is currently in the bottom tier for me. I don't think you're shocked by this.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
But to be fair, I think most people would agree. But to be fair, it's hard to stand up to. Okay, for example, and right before we did this, I tried really hard to put together my tiers. For example, in my middle tier, I have Captain America and Black Widow and Shang-Chi. I don't like Shang-Chi being there. Sorry, Shang-Chi's higher. It's not my middle tier. I moved it. But I have in my middle tier is Age of Ultron, which some people might put in bottom. I don't care. Ultron is great to me. Yeah. I have the first Thor movie, Iron Man 1, Guardians, Black Widow, Captain America, the first Avenger, Ant-Man. These are all really good movies in their own right, but better than Eternals. So that's why Eternals is lower in the lower tier. Fair. So that's where I have it, with Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 and Thor Dark World, of course, probably bottom of the bottom. But what about you? What tier would Eternals fall in for you?
So for me, I agree with you. For me, it fell into the bottom tier. I would say the top of the bottom tier for me.
What else is in your bottom tier, though? Do you know?
So in no particular order, my bottom tier, I have Thor Dark World, of course. I have Thor, the first one.
Okay.
Incredible Hulk, Ultron, but that would also be top bottom for me. Doctor Strange would be towards the top of the bottom for me as well. And then Iron Man 3 and Iron Man 2. So that is my bottom tier.
My bottom tier has almost everything you said.
But you
except for Ultron. I don't have Ultron. I have Captain Marvel in there.
Oh yes, and Captain Marvel. How could I forget that? Absolutely.
Bottom tier.
Yeah, Captain Marvel's for sure bottom tier.
And just because of how things are spread out, I have Spider-Man Far From Home in my bottom tier.
Oh.
Which is probably, we should say that. We can say that for another episode. We have to go into that right now. But yeah.
I hope the viewers cut up on you. Far From Home.
When you're ranking everything, I don't.
So wait, so Ultron, you think Ultron's better than Far From Home?
Ultron is better than Far From Home for me. I don't even have a problem saying that. Yes. Yes, yes,
You
yes.
on one? Nah, you on
Yes,
one.
I love Ultron as a movie. I actually really enjoy that movie.
And I would have to say this: I like Ultron too. Like, just because it's in my bottom tier does not mean that I don't like Ultron. But, ma'am,
Spider-Man: Far From Home just didn't do it for me.
Okay, we gotta do a different special episode for all of this. But
You know what? We'll talk about the Spider-Man movies as we lead up to the new one coming out. Let's maybe save it for then.
We'll save it for then.
Because that's the next time we'll like really be back with like all the characters we know and love. And maybe we'll do our ranking then. Like and then we can y'all can cut me up if y'all need to. But to be honest, like I put this together like 5 minutes before we started recording. I do need to sit back and think about it a little bit more. Like, do I think Ant-Man is better than Spider-Man: Far From Home? I'm not sure. I need to think about this a little bit more. A lot more.
I think I had to revisit some of the movies too.
I'm actually considering that in my ranking. Like, is it rewatchable? Would I want to sit back and watch it again? And Spider-Man: Far From Home, I don't. Ultron, I watch all the time.
That is part of how I rank all my movies as well. Like, I tried to look at it somewhat objectively, but then I'm just like, at the end of the day, would I want to rewatch this movie again? Like, because I feel like that is a part of like, is this movie good?
Can it stand on its own?
Yeah. And if you don't want to revisit it, then was it really that good? You know what I mean? So that's interesting.
Yeah. Save it for another time.
Save it for another time.
Yeah. Like I'm super confident in my top tier. I don't care. I will fight to the death for those movies. But like,
sure.
My middle tier is kind of like my middle tier and bottom tier. Honestly, my middle tier should be should include half of my bottom tier. If that makes sense. Like some things in my bottom tier.
Yeah, you just wouldn't make it like an even split. You would just be
right. I would just say my middle tier is larger than my bottom tier because I don't think Spider-Man: Far From Home is a bottom movie. It's just there's not enough space in my middle tier. You know?
You just think there's a lot more that's better than it.
Right. I just think that there's more that's better, but it's not bad.
Fair.
Not bad at all.
Fair. Oh gosh, interesting.
So anyways.
Yeah. All right, guys. That was we're gonna wrap it up on Eternals. If you guys go out and see the movie, let us know how you feel. Let us know how your theater reacted. If you guys were just as confused when all the post-credit stuff happened, were you
confused about the sex scene that was there randomly?
Indeed. If you were able to follow the story well, did it do it for you? Were you enjoying it throughout the whole thing? Could you have done without it? Maybe. We definitely enjoyed talking about the movie, with each other and with you guys. So thank you guys for tuning in. I am Nessa.
And I'm T.
And together we are the Casual Fangirls. We'll see you guys soon.